trying to get the right things done. So thank you.
I'd like to start today the way I start this a lot of the time, with information, one piece of information that is evidence in the case, so that when you have inevitable discussions on the Ramsey case, you will be armed, so to speak, with this information and can have reasonable discussions. Additionally, there are going to be more television series coming out, and you can decide with this information whether or not it's actually a dramatic recreation or whether or not it's going to be based on accuracy. What we're first going to be talking about is the autopsy. And this is the most important piece of evidence that I can give you for you to discuss. And as part of that, what's most important is the cause of death, which Boulder Police, unfortunately, in their theories about who killed JonBenet, John or his wife Patsy, concentrated and ignored this information. The coroner says the cause of death of the 6-year-old female is asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. What that means is she died from suffocation and also the blow to the head, the 8-inch crack in her skull. I talked to the coroner. I did an interview with him, and I said, what exactly does this mean? Because it's kind of hard to understand, at least for me. And he said, this is as close to simultaneous as anything I've ever seen. And he said, I don't know which ultimately killed her. And I'm sorry that we are bringing this up. I don't know what ultimately killed her, whether or not it was the strangulation or the blow to the head. The evidence from both is there. And he said, but what you need to know, if anyone's speculating about it, is that you cannot even say 5 seconds separated them. They happened as close to simultaneous as possible. So if you hear a theory about, gee, she was hit with a blow to the head and 40 minutes later there was the strangulation. No, that's impossible, according to the coroner who performed her autopsy. And that is information that you can use forever in talking to other people, but also in examining the case. I wanted to bring up one thing in relationship to this. In doing my research, and I retired or resigned from local news because I wanted to know what the heck went so wrong with this case. Why were we shadow boxing all the time on it? And so I was able to do a lot of research, and one of the things that I discovered was that, and again, I'm very pro law enforcement, but Boulder Police really goofed up this case. And they did it not just the first few days, they did it on and on and on up to today, and we'll talk about that. But I wanted to run something by you just so you could hear it from me, and that is the longest serving command officer on the case, former Police Chief Mark Beckner, did not do press conferences on the Ramsey case, and so reporters were not able to question him. But when he did retire as the police chief, and he had been an investigator on the case, he had been in charge of the case, and then he was the police chief. When he retired, he did an interview on Reddit, and he said he did it because he didn't think Reddit was public. Well, Reddit was public. And I immediately scurried like a little rat and got a copy of it before he retracted it and took it down. And so I was able to get what he said when he was asked about the cause of death. And of course, he's writing this. And what he said about the cause of death was, the blow knocked her into deep unconsciousness. The strangulation came 45 minutes to 2 hours after the head strike, based on the swelling on the brain. While the head wound would have eventually killed her, the strangulation actually did kill her. Now, according to the autopsy, is that possible? No. I mean, it's appalling in its ignorance because, again, this is the longest serving command officer on the case. Unfortunately, he speculated. He didn't know. I don't know why he didn't know. But John, you have often said that this case was not just about the murder of your daughter, that it was much more. Talk to me.
Well, you know, the murder of our child JonBenet was just devastating, as any parent, I think, could comprehend the loss of a child. I think it's the worst thing that can happen to a human. The second tragedy, though, in our case was the police focusing on our family. And we accepted that in the beginning because they said, well, you were there, you know, we've got to look at you guys. We said, okay, we accept that. We gave them tons of handwriting samples and all that stuff. But don't stop there. Well, they did stop there. And that has severely impacted my family.